If we were to look at your skull and your brain, your skull is an oval-shaped bone. The brain has the exact same shape as the skull. There's about a quarter of an inch of space around the brain where there's a fluid that acts as a shock absorber. So each of us, we bump our head each day. It's that fluid that acts as a shock absorber to absorb the impact. Concussions are velocity related, where one object strikes another at a high velocity. If you were to receive a blow to the chest, as an example, as that head is violently thrown forward and thrown backward, that brain can be thrown forward and then backward. That fluid can get displaced, and then the brain strikes the skull. And by nature, that's what a concussion is. It's a contact between the brain and skull for all practical purposes. I think there's a myth that in order to get a concussion, you need a blow to the head. There's a myth that you need to be knocked out to get a concussion. The reality is you could have a blow to the body, and if it's with enough velocity, you can get a concussion from that. The other myths, I think, are that concussions are permanent, that it's a brain injury that is not reversible. There's some correlation with, former athletes that have had some sequela of multiple concussions. And people equate that with everyday concussion. They think a single concussion will result in long-term side effects or long-term consequences. And that's not necessarily the case. I think if we had to choose three, it would be headache, it would be light sensitivity, and it would be noise sensitivity. So the most important thing, if a coach, if an athletic trainer, if a parent, if an athlete has a suspicion of a concussion, is to remove them from competition so they don't receive another blow to the head. Generally, there's a period of time where we know the less stimuli the brain receives, the better. It's a brief interval of time, but probably for several days, maybe longer depending on severity of concussion. Pulling them away from electronic stimuli, pulling them away from the classroom setting, backing off of the constant stimulus to the brain allows it to heal per se. Once the headache is gone and once some of the visual blurring is gone, once the light sensitivity is gone, once noise sensitivity is gone, then we can start a more active recovery process where we'll reintroduce the athlete to physical activity and we'll monitor their response to physical activity. In years past, the only tools we had in determining if somebody had a concussion or didn't was history. And that relied exclusively on what they told us. Did they convey those symptoms to us? And the only tools that we had to know whether this concussion was gone or still present was, are those symptoms gone or present? We could do a neurologic exam, which is checking reflexes and checking balance and checking pupils and so forth, but that's not a very exact science. In this day and age, we do preseason testing. We do a test that's called an impact test. It measures reaction time. It measures eye speed. It measures how the brain thinks, their verbal skills, their visual skills. It measures, to some degree, their math abilities and their English abilities. And we use that as a tool so that if they get injured at any point during the season, we now have a reference for comparison. It used to be where an athlete could lie to get back out on the field. Can't do that anymore. The testing doesn't lie. We know, are you recovered or not recovered? And as a result of that, we can validate our opinion with the data that lies before us. I would say that in general, the public education has gotten so much better, and parents are now aware of the consequences. Athletes are aware of the consequences. The days where an athlete would come into the clinic and deny it, or parents would come into the clinic and deny it, or coaches would push us to get an athlete back, are really quite in the distant past. More in this day and age, people are coming in with valid concerns, and I think they have their health as their top priority.